Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Bull. A crazy episode with a lot that we need to discuss about in this episode. So obviously this case deals with a cop. Harris ended up shooting a dude named Peterson, and it turns into that whole it's for one, not only was it a cop shooting someone, she shot a black man. And legitimately the circumstances around it, I was like, when you look at everything, when you look at the way he was kind of acting, I was like, oh, he was going for the sink, he wasn't going for a gun. But under the same circumstances, to me, and that's what Bull tries to shift the case into being. It's like, no, it's a case of circumstances, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, it's just kind of like the bathroom door to the women's bathroom went locked, so she puts a trash can in front of it. She doesn't have her gun on her. She's trying to pee and everything. And Peterson just busts in, and it's just kind of like, it's just like a messed up, sad circumstance. So that's why it leaves you a little conflicted, because it's like, did she have the right to pull the gun on him, but she didn't know what he was doing? She thought he was, like, in that moment, it's like, in a pure moment, you see them, like, he's rushing to the area where her gun is. So it's like, you can kind of infer from the outside perspective of like, oh yeah, like you'd see like he's potentially going for, I was thinking maybe he was drunk or something and he was about to throw up, but it's just kind of like, there's a lot of circumstance to the situation. So Cal is being represented by Miss Ford. That actress is going to it's been bothering me the entire episode, because like, I know I've recognized that actress from something and I just can't remember what it is, and it's going to bother the crap out of me so much. I'm gonna have to look it up later. It's just like, I recognize her from something. But nevertheless, obviously she's trying to get 25 million for her client, because it's like the only way change is going to happen is by making the city pay. The city will learn from its mistake by literally paying. Like, once it hits their pocket, like for situations like this, hitting your pocket is where she feels like it's really going to make people go, okay, we got to be different about this situation. But obviously it's sparking a lot, like a big thing, because people are pissed. Cops are kind of being attacked, or, and even cops themselves are a little more on edge now because of this whole situation. And, you even have, Harris blaming herself, and Bull being like, you're saying it's your fault. I haven't even really taken his case yet, but I tell you ahead of time, I really wouldn't say that out loud if I were you. Then there's the whole situation of, even like Danny having a very interesting situation in this, how she feels about it, because she's coming at it from a different perspective. I think, she's coming at it from a black woman, but also a former cop herself, because for her, it's like, yeah, she shot an unarmed black man. At the same time, too, it's like, there are protocols to handling a situation like that. She should have never put her weapon in a situation like that in an unsecured place. Like, the point is to have the door locked. So it's like, there are steps that you were trained to take under circumstances like that. Because at first for me, I'm like, well, considering like she's about to use the bathroom and everything, is it really much strange for her to do that? But it's like, under the circumstances of like, you can't lock the door, you shouldn't have done that. So that's why Danny's coming at it from that perspective. She didn't really want to take the case in the first place, because even Benny was like, oh, I don't think we're taking that case. I haven't heard anything about it. And then Bull just kind of drops it. It's like, do you want the good news or the bad news? There was even that interesting conversation between Anna and Chunk. I thought was kind of interesting, where Anna was kind of like, I can't believe you're actually taking this case. It's like, I don't really have much of a choice. Like, my boss decided to take the case, so I'm working with it. And she's like, that's kind of pathetic, isn't it? Because it's just kind of like, but for him, it's like, yeah, but having, how hard it is to find a good job. Like, I got to pay for a lot of stuff related to you going to college and stuff like that. You got scholarships and stuff like that, sure, but there's a lot that also needs to be paid for too. But she's kind of thinking like, oh, you're justifying it, like kind of you being part of this shitty situation by saying like, oh, it's because of the job and everything like that. It's like, you should say no. But also Chunk kind of brings the perspective of like, hey, on my 14th birthday, you know what my dad got me? The talk about being a black man versus the cop, and just like the cops tell you do something, you do it immediately, you just do exactly what they say. And it's like, it pissed him off, because it's like, I like that you like that, for one, that you have to tell me that, like, that it was just so angry that that's how things are, that's his dad's perspective of like, I needed to get that talk. But in retrospect, he's like, I understand why my dad did that, because like none of my white friends would have ever gotten that talk. It's his understanding. So like, probably never in their lives. So it's like, it's a legitimate concern, and just my dad was looking out for me. But for him, it's like, when it comes to this case, that the judicial system has to be colorblind. That, if everything is to be 100% fair, it has to be colorblind. Because even he's like, in this situation, I don't know who's right or wrong, but I'm glad to be a part of this, like part of this system, finding out the facts, finding out the truth. And when it comes to the justice system, that's the most important thing. And I think that was kind of a nice way of Chunk kind of turning that situation, of it being like, no, this isn't just about like a colored situation. This is about finding the truth. This is about justice, So I thought that was kind of pretty nice. You had the whole situation of Bull wanting, like, initially the commissioner, Scott, who brought this to him, is like, yeah, settle. Oh, they want more? Well, get a higher number and settle, because like the city's kind of getting flipped upside down in like just 4 days after this situation. But then, like, they kind of go in court. They kind of turn Cal's whole, like, oh, he's a good teacher. Oh, he's a teacher, second grade teacher. He's a good man. But it's like, actually, he's kind of a little shady, because there was a complaint against him from because he was doing a ride sharing app thing. And it's like, oh, apparently he kind of got a little aggressive with a lady, and he started chasing after her, because he's like, I don't want you to complain about this, because I might lose this job and I need it. And it's just kind of like, yeah, he's not a squeaky clean person. Then on top of that, it's like, oh yeah, also he had Molly in his system. What? I was like, oh, that's crazy. I was like, he was saying he was drugged. I was like, was he actually drugged? Are we going to find out that actually is an angle to this whole situation? I was like, that's crazy. And then it's like, yep, okay, we're doing good. So Bull goes, okay, so Commissioner, now's the time. We should take this and go to the defendant's lawyer, Miss Ford, and like make sure that we can get the settlement handled. And he was like, nah. It's like, this city's about to implode. It's like, you worry about this case, because that's what I hired you to do. I'll handle the city. I was like, you idiot. And then it's just kind of like, oh. Then you have Chunk running Harris through what was going to happen at trial, and trying to get her prepared for everything. And it's like, Chunk's going hard. I'm like, oh man, it's like, but it's like, no, Chunk was doing what he needed to do, because it's like, me going after you like that, Ford is going to come after you harder. You can't let her bait or trick you or get you angry. And then like there was the bomb threat that happened to come in. I'm wondering what that was. We never found out, because everyone's kind of like, because even I was like, that's a little interesting that the timing happened like that. I was like, did the commissioner set that up or something? Like somebody had to set that up. And then like, you see the look on her face, and she was kind of nervous and weird. And then like the moment they went back in the courtroom, she was weird. I was like, what? And then she's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, my job, you learn, duty and experience at a black man. I was like, why are you saying this? Because it came literally out of nowhere. But you even can tell her demeanor changed the moment it came back in the courtroom. It seemed like she was kind of more had like almost like a fuck you look on your face, like towards Miss Ford. That was kind of weird, because she had this like weird look on her face, and she just had this like laissez faire kind of, like the way she was positioned. She wasn't just like someone who's like, oh, I'm nervous about my situation. Just like she had her arm on a chair and everything, like just the way she was sitting and presenting herself. And so and then she's apologizing later on. I'm like, oh my God, did someone set her up to do that? And I was like, but what would be the point to that? Because I was confused. I was like, I don't see the point in that. And then it's kind of like their case literally exploded, because she said all that. Everyone's getting riled up. I was like, what happened there? Like someone must have gotten to her. But for what reason? What's going on here? And then the twist. Like Bull started going like, oh no, things don't seem right. I was like, okay, yeah, you're the one that feel that too. Like she's apologetic and everything. So I was like, no, you know that. It's like, okay, so it must be a situation of like, okay, Bull's starting to figure it out that obviously there's more to the situation. Because even Danny's like, oh yeah, like people wear different masks, and then you find out they're super racist and stuff like that. Turns out she's just a super racist lady. But then Bull starts bringing up something else. He's like, but what about Cal? Someone who was supposed to be sick, and the reason why he came into the bathroom was to throw up, right? At no point did he actually throw up, right? It's like, no, none of the investigation, none of it came up in the crime scene photos or anything like that. If he was so sick, especially under those circumstances, it probably would have motivated you to probably throw up even more, especially when you're so sick. So it's like, huh. And then the twist is the whole thing was a con. I was like, what? I thought that was beautifully done, because it's just kind of like, it turns out Cal and Tanya Harris are dating, and they came up with this situation to spark this whole situation, because it was about getting the city to pay a huge sum of money. And it's just like, oh geez, I even love Vinny kind of twisting and being like, oh yeah, you drove Miss Harris around, right? She's actually someone you picked up in your ride sharing, because we've already saw with the Veronica Hill situation that you use your you being a driver as a way to kind of using it as also as a dating app and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God. Because the moment they brought that up about like Bull was kind of like, oh yeah, like, I'm not settling this because now, it turns out this case isn't about race at all. It's about greed. And I was like, and he was like, two people trying to swindle the system. I'm like, they're in this again. I was like, what was going? I cannot believe it, dude. That blew my mind. Because I thought that was so interesting because it is kind of like, oh man, this heated situation. I mean, that's ultimately what makes them both assholes about the situation too. It's because you were trying to get paid. You were literally putting in the city in a situation where it was going to implode because even Bull's like, even when he was telling the commissioner, it's like, don't you see what's going on? Even here in the courtroom, you have literally civilians on one side, cops on the other, both kind of giving each other the bird, like, dogging each other, giving each other the stink eye. Because I was about to say bird eye, I meant stink eye. That was kind of the phrasing there. Nevertheless, and I thought it was so interesting. But later on, he was willing to admit it. It's like, okay, yes, you are right. Let's try to finish up the situation. Do whatever you need to try to pay whatever. But it's like, because the moment that was found out, even the cops got up in there because they were disappointed because like, hey, they got her back. They backed her up, and it turns out she helped set the situation up in the first place. It's like you literally had the city kind of almost about ready to tear itself apart for greed. You, like I said, 100% assholes. Now they're kind of going to jail for it and everything, and it's just like, wow. And that's the craziness behind this whole situation. So, you actually kind of feel really bad for Miss Ford because you could tell the look on her face like, I believe this dude. And it's like, because him doing what he did, for one, this could screw up future things because people are like, is this a scam too? Or are you trying to do this for money? Because it's like, because she fought for Cal so hard because she believed, like I said, like for her, this is a moment of, this isn't just about the money for her. It is in the sense of like, hey, this is going to make the city wake up and go, okay, we definitely need to take precautions now because we lost a whole bunch of money, and the last thing we want is to lose a whole bunch more money. So it's like that will be their motivation to kind of handle things a little bit better in the future, So I thought that was just so, and I kind of felt bad for her. Like I said, this show I think this episode did a very good job of kind of balancing all sides of it, just kind of giving Danny's perspective and Chunk's perspective, because it's not just like, not like just like a black thing. It's like they have different perspectives too, because Chunk came at it from just a situation of where he is right now, the position that he's in, plus, his position of like, oh yeah, his dad talked to him about like a black man's relationship with the police. Danny's coming at it from like, as a black woman, but also from a cop herself about like, yeah, like a cop is trained how to handle a situation like that. She didn't have to go to the extent, so that's why I thought it was kind of beautifully done and kind of getting everybody's different perspective on it. So, and it turns out like, yes, that's a great question. And it's a crazy circumstances that like would leave, I feel like a lot of people conflicted in that situation, unless for me kind of conflicted, but it turns out, oh yeah, just throw that out. Throw your confliction out because it's like, they're both assholes because they staged the whole thing. So I did like at the end though, we had a little flirtation between Bull and Ford. I didn't talk about it, but I really like when he's having his first meeting with Ford and there's all those sweets in front of him. He's pushing them away and he's about to, kind of like, he's like pushing it away, but then he picks it up and just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And then Ford walked in. But I also like the little bit of flirtation they have at the end is really nice of him being like, what was his exact word? I think it was like admires is the word he used her so much. And she turns to him and is like, oh, you want to go get drinks? He's like, I'm currently in between drinks. But he's like, if that situation changed, you'd be the first call. And she's like, well, we don't have to drink. And he's like, nah, like, there's been plenty of women that would be like, no, like when you're dealing with Jason Bull, you need a drink in your system. And it is kind of laughing and stuff. And she's like, well, don't be too surprised if basically I'm the one that calls first. And he's like, oh, don't tempt me, young lady. No, his exact words like, don't threaten me, young lady, and they're laughing, and it's just kind of, so I thought that was kind of like I said, a very good episode in regards of just kind of like the storyline and everything, because it's just, like I said, it's obviously, it's a real world situation, so I was curious how they were going to handle it, where it's like, yeah, it brought up the conversations that should be and needed to be have, like in that situation. Like I said, like it's a complicated situation, because I think you can see both sides, because that was a big thing that Jason was worried about, because it's like in this situation, it's a complicated situation. Like even from the beginning, it's like, yes, she shot an armed black man, so it's like you can't say that doesn't look bad. It looks bad, but at the same time, there are extenuating. Like I said, it's like Bull was trying to twist it. It's like it's extenuating circumstances. But even he was kind of like he wanted to wrap this up quickly because he's kind of like he didn't want any like jackasses from either side of the equation to try and use this as an excuse to do stupid things, which people have a tendency to just, like as people have like were throwing Molotovs at like a police station, like trying to attack cops and stuff like that. And like I said, cops could probably get a little itchy trigger finger and try to use this situation of like, oh, seriously, so there are terrible people on both sides who will try to take advantage of the situation. It's kind of the whole point. So like I said, it's just kind of interesting. It is, not trying to get all political here, but it's like it's a political situation, and I mean it's more of a human situation, but it is kind of like a societal, political, and human situation, kind of all in one. It kind of more so comes down to the human element, but you can't help but add in like the societal and political aspects to it because that plays a role. In particular, the social aspect of just the animosity between, just the blue veil and civilians. Like I said, I'm not trying to get all like preachy about it or something like that. It's just like I said, it's just like something people have to deal with on like a real world situation. So it isn't something that's just kind of coming out of nowhere, So, but I think they did a very good job handling that and also just telling the story in a way where it's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's a lot more to this than that, So that's just kind of my piece on it and everything. Take what you want with it. Try not to get too serious on the channel and stuff like that. But with some things like this, some crime dramas and stuff like that, kind of can't help it. It's not just these, like other things kind of sprinkle it in there as well. So, but nevertheless, that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.